must realize he may have been doing this to look good. By the way, the whole house, one is rotten, all of us will be rotten, including him, Mr. Speaker. So I hope that this will be a lesson, and the precedent that will be set from your desk, Mr. Speaker, will discourage others from going the route that Honorable Koimburi has gone. It is a shame, and he should be ashamed of himself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Owen Bayer.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, I come from a priestly lineage. And the Bible is very clear that forgiveness is divine. Now, if the forgiveness is divine, upon seeking for it, we are obliged that we forgive. And Honorable Speaker, in Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, he says that sometimes punishment may not be the execution of the crime, but more importantly, it is that the person, I'm sure, Honorable Koimburi, within the time that he has lived with his guilty, he has atoned his sins. And because he has atoned his sin, and that forgiveness is divine, I personally forgive him and request this House to forgive him. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Wamboka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Indeed, it is regrettable what has been going around, but I also want to congratulate the Honorable Member for being a gentleman and apologizing. We have more important business to work on. And just to my brother like Ruku, there are more atrocities that have been committed in this House, including taking people's signatures, and we don't know where you took them. That was more serious. So, Honorable Speaker, yes, the Honorable Member made a mistake. He has owned up the mistake and apologized. Thank you, Honorable Member.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Forgive him and proceed, Honorable Speaker. We have more important business for this House. Kenyans are watching at us. Mr. Speaker, let's rest this matter. Asante sana, Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the standing orders of this House does not describe what an apology should look like in this House. The Honorable Member has actually apologized. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't matter if he got the figures wrong or if he got the facts wrong, but he's apologized. And on that note, Mr. Speaker, I think the onus is on us to forgive him as a House. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me begin first by appreciating what has been said by other members about forgiveness and commend the Honorable Koimburi, because we are all men and women, and I say men in the parlance of the Bible, men and women, and we are honorable men and women, and we ought to carry. Honorable Speaker, I beg you protect me from the Honorable Betty. I say, Honorable Speaker, that we are seen and viewed to be honorable men and women. And it is perceived, or it should be, that we are among the very best in our society because our people elected us as among the best of the people in their constituencies. And I'm sure even the people of Juja elected the Honorable Koimburi, believing he was one of the best among us, the people of Juja. And therefore, he has been very magnanimous to apologize. And the book of 1 John 1:9. The good book tells us that if we confess our sins, he, meaning God, is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. I think, Honorable Speaker, I have listened to what members across the aisle have said, that if you seek forgiveness, you shall be forgiven. And I must commend the Honorable Koimburi for seeking forgiveness for his unrighteous ways of things he said about members that were not there. But the book also tells us, if you confess. And when I listened to Honorable Koimburi, I heard him say that he said things that he now knows are untrue, and he knew they were untrue even at the time he said. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, the fact that the Bible tells us if we confess, we shall be forgiven by the Almighty God. And we are all followers of Christ and followers of the Almighty God, Allah, even for those of us who are from the Muslim Islamic faith. Honorable Speaker, if you can forgive me from these ones who are saying we are not God. Of course, I know we are not God. But we all believe in God. And I want to believe in this house, Honorable Speaker, we are men and women of great faith. Men and women who are Christians and others who are very good Muslims, who believe in the Almighty God. And therefore, being followers of Christ like myself, I have absolutely no problem as a person in forgiving the Honorable Koimburi for his iniquities. However, to protect the institution of Parliament, Honorable Speaker, to protect the dignity of this House, to protect the dignity of innocent members of Parliament who are seen as sellouts for either 2 million shillings or 2,000 shillings or whatever the amount was, Honorable Speaker, then I would beg that we handle this matter with a little bit more care, so that tomorrow I do not stand up and accuse a member of Parliament who votes this way or the other of having received bribes, knowing what I am saying is untrue. More worrying, Honorable Speaker, and I would urge you, Honorable Speaker, to ask the Honorable Koimburi to stand in his place. Because if you seek forgiveness, please do so with clean hands. When the Honorable Koimburi wrote that letter last week, Honorable Speaker, that letter was delivered to your office in the evening. A copy was delivered to my office, and a copy, I think, to the leader of minority, because they were copied. And I would have wanted to hear the Honorable Koimburi confirm if indeed what he says, he was the author of this letter. This letter was delivered by a staff member in his office, whom he knows, and I don't want to name him because he's not here, but the Honorable Koimburi knows his staff member who delivered that letter. The letter was stamped in my office. Unfortunately, the person who stamped it received, put one stamp upside down on the copy that he came with, that he was to return with. And he asked that it be stamped properly, facing up, and it was stamped. That is the letter that circulated on social media last week. The Honorable George Koimburi, on his social media platform, specifically on his Facebook page, stamped the same letter fake and said it is fake news. I would therefore have been more convinced to believe in the seeking of forgiveness by Honorable Koimburi if he also came out clearly to tell the people of Kenya whether the dishonesty exhibited on his Facebook page is not the same dishonesty he now seeks to exhibit on the floor of this House, pretending to seek forgiveness that he does not mean. But if the Honorable Koimburi can confirm to me and to this House that even his actions on Facebook page that day were informed by other factors other than the truth, Honorable Speaker, and confirm he was the author of this letter, then I am more than willing myself to forgive the Honorable Koimburi. Failure to do that, Honorable Speaker, and that's why I say there must be a balance between our faith and the dignity and honor and respect of this House, Honorable Speaker. Failure to do that, then I would strongly recommend, because Honorable Koimburi cannot be in a church and allege one thing. Come and draft a letter seeking forgiveness. Then the same evening, post on social media that the letter is fake. A week after, appear on the floor of this House, now saying a different thing. Which George Koimburi do we believe? Which George Koimburi are we seeing here? Which George Koimburi is here? Is it the George Koimburi who lies in church? Is it the George Koimburi who stamps letters fake on social media? Or is it the meek-looking George Koimburi who is seated here now seeking forgiveness? If this George Koimburi seated here seeking forgiveness, Honorable Speaker, is the same Koimburi, I forgive him. If the George Koimburi of lying in church and later denying and reasserting the lie, then I will not forgive that George Koimburi. But the George Koimburi who is here, if he wants to be honorable, if he wants to dignify this House, he must come out clean, confess, one, to the lie he said in church, confess to the lie he sold on social media. If he comes out clean, I am more than willing to forgive the Honorable George Koimburi and ask the Almighty God to also forgive him for having lied in church. And the Honorable George Koimburi is my very good friend, Honorable Speaker. In fact, the Honorable George Koimburi, in his first election as a member of Parliament, he will tell you, he had serious problems when he was seeking election first as a member of Parliament. The Honorable George Koimburi was elected never having set foot in a single political rally in Juja constituency. He campaigned when he was in hiding. And he knows the only place he could come to while he was in hiding was to my house for me to facilitate him, to be able to facilitate his campaign. And these are facts of life, Honorable Speaker. And the Honorable Koimburi knows. I have invited him to my house, facilitated his campaign. And that is why, as a friend, I choose to forgive him if he confesses the dishonesty. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I will ask, before you conclude, the Honorable George Koimburi to rise in his place and clarify the matter of the letters, because that is pertinent for me and for many members to know whether indeed is genuine in the seeking of forgiveness. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order, Rosa Buyu. Order, Rosa Buyu. Order, Rosa Buyu. You are being disorderly. Then go out without causing disorder. Wamrata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to address this issue of Koimburi. Having come from the same county with him and being his mama county, I, number one, was very embarrassed at the situation that Koimburi put us in. And I see as members continuing shouting at one another at this point, I'm trying to ask myself whether all of us got to know the magnitude of destruction that statement made to this country. And it is about all of us. Yes, and somebody is calling me Bibia Bishop, and you knowing that I'm a wife of a clergy, and having sat here to take 2 million shillings to go and sell my county, that to me meant that I am not only a rogue, but I am also not respecting my Christian faith. But all said and done, Mr. Speaker, I would want to say this. It is very hard for a Kikuyu man to say sorry. It never comes out easily from a Kikuyu man. I may not know about other communities, but I can confess that for a Kikuyu man, it is never easy to say sorry. So I'm imagining Koimburi must have tried to work out to come and say sorry. But again, he is playing us a game. Because Koimburi has apologized and apologized very clearly, and we feel good. But the same Koimburi has put the same in his social media and said it is a fake letter. So again, he puts us in another mess, because we will appear like we forced him to come and
Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Take your seats. Order. Order. Robert, take your seats. Eh? Take your seats. Order, honorable members. Order. Omulher. Omulher. Take your seat. Order, take your seats. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Order, Rosa. Take your seats. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. 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 Order, members. Member for Malindi, take your seats. Order, members, take your seats. Honorable Ruku. Order, members. Order. Order, members, take your seats. Honorable Jalango. Order. 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 Take your seat. Take your seat. Honorable members, take your seats. Jalango, take your seat. Honorable Mwenje, you are the whips. You should be helping the House to be orderly. Order, Naisula, order. 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 Honorable members, order. Honorable members, order. Order, honorable members. I don't know if what I've been told is true, that the honorable ladies were going to embrace Honorable Koimburi. If it is true, it was honorable. But if anybody, order, 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 honorable members. But I can also read the body language of members. The menacing manner in which I saw the honorable member for Garissa, this is for Mandera, Honorable Mulher, and my own commissioner, Faith Gitau. We have always operated under false impression that the custodians of peace are our women. And now that becomes totally fallacious. And now that that drama is over, you have provided enough comic relief in the House. Now let's get back to business. Honorable Koimburi, You are absolutely safe and protected. You can go back to your seat if you are not comfortable where you are sitting. But the rules of the House say, order, order, order. Rosa Buyu. It is amazing how you are wailing louder than the bereaved. It's totally amazing how you are wailing louder than the bereaved. But let's go to the next order.
Order number 10, the Supplementary Appropriation Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 39 of 2024, second reading.
Ndindi Nyoro.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Supplementary Appropriation Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 39 of 2024, be now read a second time. Honorable Speaker, though the consultations are quite high.
Order, honorable members. Members, you are now discussing very serious business. Appropriations bill, supplementary appropriations bill, determining how you want the resources of this country to be spent. I expect you to listen carefully and contribute diligently to this bill. Go on, Dindi.
Honorable Speaker, I want to thank this House because we have been through this process in the consideration of the report as was made by the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and of course with the heavy consultations with all the members of this House through their departmental committees. And Honorable Speaker, after what we did last week, then the process now has shifted into concretizing what we have been doing last week in the form of the appropriations bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, and I hope we are together with members. Honorable Speaker, as you said, this is a very important matter that we are discussing, and I request that we have our consultations in low tones. Honorable Speaker, the process that we are having today, as I said earlier, is the culmination of the budget-making process, and as far as approval of the appropriations is concerned. And Honorable Speaker, members will also be having a chance, because in the second reading, to actually make their comments and opinions and take part in this debate. But Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I want to thank all the members of this House, because all of us have taken part in the preparation of these supplementary estimates, Honorable Speaker, through our departmental committees, and also singularly as members of Parliament, because we really take note of all the opinions from our colleagues in this House, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, also I want to thank you and thank the clerk of the National Assembly for availing to us a very good working environment, Honorable Speaker, and especially the precincts of Parliament, where we discussed the entire process, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I had said when we were doing or debating the report, I also want to thank the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and also our back office, Honorable Speaker, which is the Parliamentary Budget Office, Honorable Speaker, and especially we have been working very closely with officers like Abel, Julie, and Dan, Honorable Speaker, in the preparation of this appropriations bill. Honorable Speaker, why are we having this debate today? The reason why we are having this debate today, Honorable Speaker, number one, it is unprecedented. We have never had a supplementary budget being prepared before the main one is actually implemented. Honorable Speaker, therefore, this is the first time in the budget-making process in Kenya where we are having the supplementary estimates, Honorable Speaker, be considered barely a month after the passage of the main budget. And Honorable Speaker, this is premised on the fact that, Honorable Speaker, we were preparing a budget. The budget had two sides. There was the revenue side, but also the expenditure side. I am lucky to be handling the expenditure side. The revenue side, as we know, is handled by the Finance Committee, led by my brother, Honorable Kimani Kuria. Honorable Speaker, we passed our side as the Budget Committee, which is the expenditure, in anticipation that we were to have the entire revenue-raising measures, Honorable Speaker, realized. Unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, or fortunately so, the Kenyan people requested that we look at other means, Honorable Speaker, insofar as the management of public finances is concerned. And out of that, Honorable Speaker, then, we had a hole in the budget. All the revenue-raising measures, as were anticipated by the Finance Bureau, Honorable Speaker, therefore was left as a void. And Honorable Speaker, we have done two things to fill up that void. There are only two areas that we could explore, Honorable Speaker. One, it is in terms of expanding our deficit by borrowing slightly more. And in that regard, Honorable Speaker, in this appropriations bill, we are requesting that we borrow an extra 170 billion Kenya shillings over and above what we had budgeted in the main budget, Honorable Speaker. Consequently, our deficit, therefore, for this financial year is in excess of 750 billion. But, Honorable Speaker, to allay those fears, whereas our deficit has moved from 3.83% of deficit to GDP ratio, the current one we are considering, Honorable Speaker, of 4.3% deficit to GDP ratio, is still within our range as a country, Honorable Speaker, only that then, there before, we wanted to move out of the hole much faster because of our borrowing, and enlarging the deficit is not a very prudent manner of managing our economy. The other area, Honorable Speaker, we had to explore is the expenditure side. And consequently, therefore, over and above borrowing an extra 170 billion Kenya shillings, we have also cut expenditure to a tune of over 145 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, of what we had anticipated, Honorable Speaker, to spend. But, Honorable Speaker, it is important as this House to know that some of the things we have been doing in this House have actually been bearing fruits. So that even as we consider the proposal before us, we must know that it is not haphazard. It is usually very considered, and the more the reason we have been seeing the output in our economy. And I say so because, Honorable Speaker, last year we were in the same process. What were the results? Our economy in 2023 grew by 5.6%. Honorable Speaker, our inflation has now been tamed completely to the recent figures of 4.6%. Honorable Speaker, also, our currency seems to respond to the policies that we have been making in this House, and especially insofar as budget is concerned. And that is why our currency, against the greenback, has been gaining now close to 20% this year alone, Honorable Speaker, and much more in comparison to the regional currencies. Honorable Speaker, what are the other areas of consideration when we were making this supplementary budget, Honorable Speaker? One, we know that it is just out of semantics that we are calling it supplementary one. But in practice, Honorable Speaker, what we are passing today is actually the main budget. And I say so because the main one was not implemented. What will get implemented is actually what is contained in here. And I see members are already reading it. Members are already consulting on the content in this bill, Honorable Speaker. What is the content here, Honorable Speaker? The budget we are considering is a budget of roughly 3.84 or thereabout trillion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. 3.8 trillion, just to roughly approximate. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the revenue side, we have been able to downgrade our projections. And other than the 2.9 billion shillings we anticipated, Honorable Speaker, in the main budget, we will now be raising just above 2.6 trillion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, the A&A in this budget is just around 440 billion Kenya shillings. But also, Honorable Speaker, as I said before, the deficit is over 700 billion Kenya shillings. But what is on the expenditure side? On the expenditure side, Honorable Speaker, I just want to highlight a few elements. One, on the national government side, we have been able to take a hit, Honorable Speaker, of around 121 billion Kenya shillings. This is the downgrade, Honorable Speaker, in expenditure in regards to the executive, parliament, and judiciary. And Honorable Speaker, to lead that way, here in Parliament, Honorable Speaker, we voluntarily, Honorable Speaker, accepted a cut of Kenya shillings 3.7 billion, Honorable Speaker. And members of this House have told Kenyans very clearly that they are willing to travel less. They are willing to travel less domestically and also in terms of foreign. And Honorable Speaker, therefore, we have been able to rationalize those budgets in the National Assembly and in Parliament at large. Honorable Speaker, we have also been able to cut some ritual resources from the judiciary so that they also carry an equivalent burden. And I hope members are listening, Honorable Speaker, because when it comes to travel, let me repeat, the budget for travel, both foreign and domestic, has been cut across the board. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the members of this House because they have said it very categorically that they don't want to travel as much as we have been traveling because they are very cognizant of the problems that we are dealing with as an economy. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, we cut Kenya shillings 3.7 billion from Parliament. Judiciary has lost, executive has lost. But also, Honorable Speaker, the cuts have been horizontal and vertical. We have cut in all levels of government. Whereas the national government is losing 121 billion. Even our counties, Honorable Speaker, are losing 20 billion, Honorable Speaker, in equitable share. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, these are tough times, and I want to congratulate all leaders for allowing that we have a lesser budget in terms of size and everyone to take a haircut. Honorable Speaker, what are the other areas that have suffered? As we are aware, Honorable Speaker, when I was moving the main budget, there was an increment in CDF of 10 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank this House because members have accepted that, yes, we can postpone that dream, and therefore we live with the budget that we had the last financial year. Honorable Speaker, there was 14.5 billion Kenya shillings for rural electrification. I also want to thank the members of this House because they have already agreed that we postpone the electrification project, Honorable Speaker, where every constituency was to get 50 million Kenya shillings every constituency. Honorable Speaker, beyond that, road sector, of course, has been decimated. Road sector has lost some quite colossal amounts of money, Honorable Speaker, and many other sectors. But I also want to assure this House, ostentatious spending, Honorable Speaker, spending that is not core to service delivery, we have also cut across the board, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me not dwell too much on the cuts. Let me first go to the policy issues. There is something peculiar that we noted when we have been considering this supplementary budget. Honorable Speaker, one is that as we consider the supplementary estimates, barely a month after the passage of the main budget, we have seen a high appetite of MDAs requesting that we enhance their A&A. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the conclusion that we have come to as the Budget Committee is that MDAs have been underestimating grossly their appropriations in aid. And Honorable Speaker, we have, in our report, recommended several things. We have seen very clearly that our country is very rich. And in that regard, two things have come up. One, Kenya as a government is overrepresented when it comes to organizations owned by government. Honorable Speaker, Kenya has got over 334 parastatos and sagas. Honorable Speaker, we have started the route of rationalizing this area, Honorable Speaker, and in this supplementary budget, Honorable Speaker, we have denied 47 of them money for operations and maintenance, Honorable Speaker, because they are either duplicating service, Honorable Speaker, or they have been overtaken by events. Honorable Speaker, as a country, this is a route you have to travel. We cannot continue having many bodies of government overlapping their services to the Kenyan people, Honorable Speaker, while we are still spending a lot of money in their recurrent expenditure. Honorable Speaker, 47 sagas, 47 government organizations have been owed up through this process, Honorable Speaker, by first denying them the budget as we, Honorable Speaker, decide what to do as a country with them. The second thing, Honorable Speaker, zooming in, and I want to request this discussion that we follow together as members. In a constituency like Suna West, in a constituency like North Hor, in a constituency like Baringo, Honorable Speaker, Baringo North, we have, for example, an engineer who represents the Kera roots on the ground. In the same constituency or region, we have a Kenha office and engineers already on the ground. In the same jurisdiction, we have Kura officers, Honorable Speaker, in the same ground. We have to ask ourselves very honest questions, Honorable Speaker. Do we need a Kera engineer, on top of that, a Kenha engineer, on top of that, a Kura engineer in Ronyejes, for example, Honorable Speaker? Can these roles be done by a singular office in the regions? Honorable Speaker, that will move us towards rationalizing the recurrent expenditure so that we can free up resources to go into development. In water sector, Honorable Speaker, we have over 20 bodies in the water sector alone. Waterworks, over 10. There are other national bodies, Honorable Speaker. We have to look inwards, Honorable Speaker, and be very categorical. Do we need, as a country, to have 20 bodies dealing with water, for example, whereas each of them is having like $500 million Kenya shillings in recurrent, Honorable Speaker, doing the same job? Honorable Speaker, this is a question that in the midterm, we have to ask and critically evaluate whether we need these bodies or we need to condense them and therefore free up resources to go into the service of the Kenyan people. Honorable Speaker, I also now want to highlight some of the areas we never touched in terms of cutting their budgets or rationalizing. Honorable Speaker, I want to laud the corrective wisdom of this House. And Honorable Speaker, I request as the members get this very clearly. Whereas we have been cutting the budget to fit into the shoe properly, Honorable Speaker, there are some areas we as a House have said no to their cuts because we think they are critical to the Kenyan people who we represent. One of them, Honorable Speaker, the monies that had been allocated for the confirmation of the JSS interns, 18.7 billion Kenya shillings. Honorable Speaker, we did not approve any cut. The money is going appropriated so that we confirm our JSS interns, all the 46,000 of them, into permanent and pensionable terms. The second thing, Honorable Speaker, there are interns in our health sector. And Honorable Speaker, the interns in our health sector, we have also allocated Kenya shillings, 3.7 billion Kenya shillings, for them to be confirmed into permanent and pensionable terms because they deserve that, Honorable Speaker. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, our economy is agrarian. Our economy is agricultural based. This is not a very good story, Honorable Speaker, because in economics, one of the areas to measure whether an economy is growing is when an economy has less and less of agriculture in the composition of GDP. In fact, one of the definitions of economic development, Honorable Speaker, because there is economic growth, there is economic development. In economic growth, Those are the jargons we term as GDP and the rest, and GNP and the rest. But in the economic development side, Honorable Speaker, we define the economy both quantitatively and qualitatively. And one of the qualitative measures of whether an economy is a developed economy, it is an economy that has less than 10% of agriculture in the composition of GDP. Fortunately or unfortunately, Honorable Speaker, in Kenya, agriculture still accounts for over 18% of our GDP. And agriculture here, I mean the primary part of our production, Honorable Speaker, which is agriculture, forestry, mining, and fisheries. Honorable Speaker, but that is where we are now, and we need to do something on it, because 70% of our rural population are engaged in agriculture. And in that respect, Honorable Speaker, we have allocated Kenya shillings 7.5 billion into fertilizer subsidy. And the fertilizer subsidy, Honorable Speaker, will be for food crops and cash crops, Honorable Speaker. Coffee farmers can access that fertilizer. Maize farmers can access that fertilizer. Cotton farmers can access that fertilizer. There is no discrimination in regards to the kind of crop that our farmers are growing. Honorable Speaker, the second thing in regards to agriculture, we have allocated Kenya shillings, 3 billion shillings, into the coffee cherry revolving fund, Honorable Speaker. That money will go into easing the cost of borrowing when it comes to coffee societies and also coffee farmers. The other thing in regards to coffee, Honorable Speaker, coffee farmers, the recently tabulated debts are around 8.6 billion Kenya shillings that coffee societies owe to the banks. Honorable Speaker, so that we can continue to help our farmers in these debt menace, we have allocated the first phase, Kenya shillings 2 billion, Honorable Speaker, into the payment of coffee debts so that our farmers, Honorable Speaker, can get reprieve when it comes to the debts, Honorable Speaker. In the sugar sector, we have allocated around 700 million to 1 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. One, to enhance in terms of payments of arrears of farmers, but also number two, Honorable Speaker, to increase the sucrose level, to increase the technology in the sugar sector. And I want to laud Honorable Motonga, Honorable Speaker, who is the chair for agriculture, because he has actually looked inwards into AFA to get resources to support our sugar farmers, because they also deserve more. One, in terms of payments, but also number two, in terms of technology, so that we can enhance the payments of sugar cane, not just in terms of weight, but also in terms of sucrose level, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the other thing we have done in the arena of agriculture is that we have allocated to new KCC Kenya shillings 1.5 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker, money that will go into defending the raw milk prices so that our farmers can get a net of 50 shillings per liter, Honorable Speaker, for raw milk, so that dairy farming can continue to be a profitable venture for our farmers, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we have done much more in that arena. We have done much more in that arena, Honorable Speaker, because we believe agriculture is important for our economy. Honorable Speaker, when it comes to our security sector, the Maraga Task Force was given a mandate to go around the country, Honorable Speaker, to check how our security officers are living. But before I go to that, Honorable Speaker, before I go to that, let me just finish with agriculture first. I was to highlight one more critical issue. In the dairy sector, the Kenyan government has been having a program with the Polish government, where the GOK was to raise 5% of the funds, and the Poland government was to give us the remainder, so that we purchase coolers for our farmers. Honorable Speaker, out of the changes in governance in Poland, this has become a very long process for us to access the other funds on the other side. What we have done as government, what we have done as this House of Parliament, Honorable Speaker, is to allocate Kenya shillings 2 billion for outright purchase of coolers, Honorable Speaker, to be given to our farmers so that, Honorable Speaker, dairy farming can continue to be mechanized and enhanced. Going back to security, And I want to thank Honorable Tongoyo because he's very, very passionate about the sector. The Maraga Task Force, Honorable Speaker, went around the country and they reported to us the obvious, the truth that you all know, that our police officers are not remunerated enough, that our police officers live in standards that are subhuman. And Honorable Speaker, for us to move to the direction of ameliorating the matter, Honorable Speaker, we have done an increment. This House has done an increment of 3.5 billion Kenya shillings to the National Police Service Commission for the increase of salaries to our police officers, Honorable Speaker, who are our brothers and sisters, because, Honorable Speaker, they don't have a union to talk for them, and therefore I want to laud this House and the government for fitting in there and adding salaries to our police officers because they deserve it, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I come to the conclusion, this bill has got many things, and those many things affect the people who have put us in the positions of service, Honorable Speaker. I request the members of this House, the kinds of solidarity we always have, the input you always give us as the Budget Committee, of enriching the process. I want to request you that it is always welcome because it shapes the way we allocate resources. I want to thank all the members, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank all the committees and especially the chairs of departmental committees because they have been able to assist us in working around the clock to deliver this document, Honorable Speaker, and in a timely manner. Honorable Speaker, with those many, many remarks, I also, first of all, before I move, because I've seen many things in the media, I have seen issues around the education sector. The truth of the matter is that education sector is receiving the highest budget, is receiving the lion's share of our budget, Honorable Speaker. I have also seen issues around governance. Honorable Speaker, I request that members would go through the bill so that we can distinguish what we are seeing out there and what is the reality, because the reality is much better. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I also want to assure Kenyans.
Order, Ndindi. There's a point of information from GK. Do you want it?
Yes, GK is my neighbor. I can always benefit from him.
Go ahead, GK.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Indeed, the member for Keharo is my neighbor and my good friend. And I know he has mentioned something to do with the road agencies, Kera, Kura, Kenha, and KRB. And I will request that he allows me to give a competing perspective on his views. Because, Honorable Speaker, some years back, many years back, we used to have a ministry called Ministry for Roads and Public Works. It was a humongous ministry, and it never used to serve the public the right way. Never used to deliver services to Mwananchi. Honorable Speaker, we are living in days when management of public resources and affairs are done through what we call public management as opposed to public administration. And in public management, Honorable Speaker, we have what we call disaggregation of units. And in disaggregation of units, Honorable Speaker, that is where you reduce the scope, you reduce the size, so that you're able to deliver services the right way. If we ramp again those agencies, we'll be taking many steps backwards. So, Honorable Speaker, I beg to inform the member that having these agencies broken down into smaller units makes it much easier to deliver public goods and services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable GK, and I take note of that. It's just a discussion I'm putting into our might, not in terms of abolishing the agencies, but whether we need all of them. But I agree with you, and it's a debate that we are fronting on the table so that we look for the best alternative for our country. Honorable Speaker, as I come to the conclusion, I also want to assure the members that the monies for equalization fund, the 8 billion shillings, is still intact, so that the Kenyan areas which have been left behind, Honorable Speaker, can also catch up when it comes to development, Honorable Speaker, because when all the sides of Kenya develop, then Kenya wholesomely develops. And Honorable Speaker, as we know, all Kenyans live everywhere. And therefore, it is our responsibility to make sure Kenya grows across all areas, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to allay the fears about the school feeding program. The Kenya shillings 3 billion for the school feeding program is still intact, and it will be managed by the infrastructure in the Ministry of Education. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the school feeding program, I want to assure members, is still there in the budget, 3 billion shillings, and it is under the Ministry of Education because they have the right infrastructure to administer those resources. We have also allocated monies for the to operationalize the funds created by the new SHIF, Honorable Speaker, all the 3 funds. We have input around 8 to 10 billion shillings so that these funds can be operational and serve in the purpose of deliver universal health coverage to all Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I beg to move and request the very able Vice Chairperson of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, the Iron Lady, Madam Mary Amase, to second this motion.
Mary Amase, the Iron Lady. I didn't know that was your other name. Gone.
Thank you, Chair. I stand to second the supplementary appropriation bill, bill number 2. Chair, from the onset, I want to say...
Which chair are you addressing?
Oh, Honorable Speaker, I'm sorry. Honorable Speaker, this is a very important bill, and honorable members, I think it's important that we listen because this appropriations bill is the one that details how the money has been allocated and how this money is going to be spent, and this is what guarantees continuous operation of government services. Honorable Speaker, having said that, I just want to echo what the chair has already said, that our total expenditure has reduced slightly, and that we are able to reduce the expenditure by 145 billion, and also in the process, the deficit went up slightly because we are going to borrow an additional 170 billion. Honorable Speaker, what this means, therefore, that going forward, we need to continue reviewing our budget. We need to continue to identify areas of overlaps, areas of duplication, areas of wasteful expenditure, because whereas we are proud we've managed to retain some of the expenditures that are addressing some of the most critical issues. Members, you'll agree with me that one of the biggest challenges we are having in the country right now is unemployment. One of the reasons we've seen our young people in the streets is unemployment. So we therefore need to continue to look for money, tighten our revenue collection measures so that we're able to enhance our A&A. We need to continue to review and oversight our expenditure so that we can even rearrange it further to save more monies so that we can take that money towards employing our teachers. I was in my constituency yesterday, and teachers are saying, why are we increasing a salary for the police officers, yet teachers' salary has not been enhanced? Why are we not employing more teachers? So we need to look for more money so that in the second supplementary, we are able to employ more teachers, because right now what we have managed is to set aside 8.7 billion for just confirmation of interns. But we need to employ more. We need to employ more doctors. We need even to employ and look for money to pay for our gurus and many other servants, Kenyans who are giving a lot of service and dedication to this country. But as we speak about the police officers, we've just given them an increment. But I want to tell you, members, and we are aware that these police officers are living in a very deplorable condition. Some of the structures they are living in, we even have police stations that do not have furniture. So the Minister of Interior even needs more funding added into that sector so that they can be able to address the issues. I also want to applaud and really commend the team, the Budget and Appropriations Committee, because we've also managed to maintain or to restore some of the allocations to fertilizer, for fertilizer subsidy, allocations even to the farmers, to cushion our sugarcane farmers who have never gotten an allocation, the 700 million that would go towards paying arrears of cane payments to the farmers that had never been paid, and also to the farmers, those that are for the coolers, for the dairy farmers. So, Honorable Speaker, as we continue, members, we need to know that in the appropriations bill, it is detailing item by item, sector by sector, and the amounts that have been allocated for expenditure purposes, so that when we go out, we have the information to give to our people. Honorable Speaker, I second.
Order. Honorable members on your feet, take your seats. Ruku, take your seats. Angol, take your seat. Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that the Supplementary Appropriation Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 39 of 2024, be now read a second time. Gitonga Murugara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to rise and support the Supplementary Appropriations Bill, which has ably been presented by the Chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and seconded also ably by the Vice Chair of the same committee. We are through a process which possibly we would not have gone through had it not that we do not have a Finance Act for this year. As a result of which, we have to supply the government with the money through supplementary appropriations. It is vitally important to note that all the revenue-raising measures that were intended in the Finance Act or Finance Bill, which was actually dropped at the will of Kenyans, now do not apply to our country, and we have to revert to what we have in the 2023 and 2024 Finance Act. That act operates because it has not been repealed, would have only been repealed if this act for this year had been passed, and therefore, while there is no lacuna on the Finance Act laws, the correct position is that the government must be supplied through supplementary appropriations bills and acts, as we are doing now. Allow me to commend the committee for having found means and ways of ensuring that the government is going to be supplied, although with the limitations. We have 3 arms of government, and each of them will have to embrace a cut in the spending which had been projected. We start with the executive, which actually carries the lion's share of the budget, and we'll also have to carry the lion's share of the cuts, followed by this House as the legislature, the second arm of government, and after that we have to go to the third arm of government. We know very well there are 2 levels of government, the national government and the county governments. The county governments must also embrace themselves for the proposed cuts. The net effect is that while we anticipated to have more development this year, that may not be realized as fast as we had anticipated, and the county governments must actually now relook at their revenue raising measures through the cesses they have in the counties where they raise money, make it proper, more efficient, but of course without having to overlevy the citizens. Kenyans are complaining that the level of taxation is quite high, and with that high taxation, sometimes they are asking, what are we getting in return? Therefore, it is vitally important that the government, the officers of the government, be prudent in their spending, so that while we are able to meet recurrent expense, we must also be prepared to meet the development expense, which is equally important. We have to do with it, including this House. The CDF has now lost the 10 billion that we were all anticipating. Each constituency would have possibly gotten not less than 30 million, but that is now water under the bridge. We still have the figures we had last year. We are able to do even more because the money is actually going to be supplied. And whether it is this House, it is the judiciary, which also is losing over 1.5 billion. We really have to scale down what we have to do. May I urge everybody that we have to be reasonable. We have to accept the cuts. We have to accept the austerity measures that are put in place so that those luxuries which the government was enjoying, which this House was enjoying, or the judiciary was enjoying, must be reduced so that we remain with what we consider extremely necessary and for the benefit of the citizens. We are also happy to note that with all those measures,